Would you ever threaten a cop like this former Love Island contestant? Or what about running a honey trap to rob some poor unsuspecting person, but then completely mess it up like this couple? We're also sure you wouldn't start selling illegal substances while still being a pro athlete like this guy. And there's no way you'd be as bad as this lady faking her own demise, right? Let's get to the dumbest decisions people will make. Starting with number 6, Love Island threats. Hannah Smith, known from season 6 of Love Island USA, found herself in serious trouble following a night out in Atlanta. The 26-year-old North Carolina resident ended up facing felony charges after an incident that escalated quickly outside a concert venue. The whole thing went down when Smith was escorted out of the event for some kind of disruptive behavior. An officer on the scene tried to help her get into an Uber, but things took a turn when she allegedly swung at the officer. Even after being handcuffed, Smith apparently wasn't finished with whatever freakout she was having and reportedly tried to kick the officer multiple times. Once inside the police vehicle, the situation only got worse as Smith allegedly threatened the officer's life and even extended the threats to the officer's sister. Facing charges of making threats and obstructing law enforcement, Smith was booked into the Cobb County Jail. Her bail was set at $8,000 and she was released the next day. Interestingly, after getting out, Smith resumed her social media activity without mentioning the incident, leaving followers in the dark about her legal troubles. Fans of Love Island USA might remember Smith's dramatic journey on the show, where she initially coupled up with fellow lover of islands, Kendall Washington. However, their magical island romance was short-lived, as Washington later paired with Nicole Jackie, making it to the finals before also splitting up after the season ended. Meanwhile, Smith exited the villa on day 10, struggling to find a lasting connection. It's always dumb to act up enough to get yourself arrested, and even more so when you're a person that has any sort of fame at all. Even though she didn't do well on the show, even a little fame is fame. And countless other reality stars have spun their 15 minutes into something more lucrative. Not to mention, being even mildly famous means every little stupid thing you do is going to get talked about for the 10 people who remember you and are interested. Number 5, Shoe Trap. Ashley Arrieta and Jamari Webb were hit with charges for an incident involving a man from Oregon at a Tacoma hotel. The two were accused of luring 27-year-old Hector Gonzalez Jimenez with the promise of a paid encounter, only for events to take a dark turn after his arrival. Hector met Ashley at an exotic dancing club, where they arranged to meet later at a nearby hotel. Surveillance footage showed him arriving at around 3:20 a.m. and Ashley following shortly after. According to court records, Jimenez sent a $1,500 payment to Ashley before heading to his room, where he thought the two were going to sin. Once the payment was confirmed, Ashley signaled Webb to proceed. The sequence of events inside the room remain uncertain, but one thing that's certain was that Hector didn't exit. The next morning, hotel staff found him unresponsive, with evidence pointing to an encounter involving a firearm. A holster and ammunition magazine were located nearby, and clues soon led detectives to track down the suspects. Investigators pieced together the timeline using hotel footage and several items left behind. A single slip-on shoe found near the doorway caught their attention. The other matching shoe was discovered in Webb's apartment during a search. The footage also showed the pair leaving the hotel shortly after 3:30 a.m., which is some pretty strong evidence on its own, since he was there for 10 minutes and they were the last to see Hector alive. Arrieta eventually admitted to meeting Jimenez that night and shared that Webb arrived after she gave him a signal. She claimed to have left the room before any conflict occurred and denied any knowledge of further actions. Authorities believe the two suspects attempted to cover their tracks by discarding the victim's phone along a nearby highway. Webb, who had a prior conviction for robbery, faced additional charges due to firearm possession restrictions. Both Arrieta and Webb were held on $1 million bail, awaiting further court appearances. Jimenez's family traveled from Oregon to attend the hearings, but chose not to speak publicly. It's dumb that these two tried to cover their tracks by tossing Hector's phone like they were being so clever, but were seen entering and exiting, and the dude somehow literally lost his shoe. Like, how do you not realize that you lost your shoe, of all things? And then they left the firearm in the holster next to Hector along with the mag. Like, they couldn't even try to claim that the wound was self-inflicted. They just tried to leave evidence everywhere. If this crime was from some detective video game, it would be the training level where they basically tell you what to do to catch these idiots. Number 4. Some guy tries to impersonate a cop and gets arrested. Anthony Michael Harper, a 22-year-old from Phoenix, Arizona, got into some legal trouble after posing as a police officer. Authorities charged him with impersonating a peace officer and unlawful imprisonment following an incident where he allegedly detained some guy at a convenience store. It all began when Harper, dressed in a tactical vest, approached some guy at a Circle K in Youngstown, a small town in Maricopa County, Arizona. Claiming to be Officer Harper with the state of Arizona, he ordered the guy to put his hands behind his back, placed him in handcuffs, and escorted him to his vehicle. So the guy, who really thought Harper was a real officer, complied with the supposed arrest, which is what you're supposed to do with law enforcement. Harper's strange arrest didn't go unnoticed. Security guards from a nearby company recorded the encounter and reported it to the actual Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Deputies reviewed the footage, which showed Harper had been following one of their security patrol cars and then confronting the man and making his arrest. When questioned, Harper claimed that he believed he was within his rights as a bail recovery agent to detain the man. According to court documents, it was noted that a reasonable person would have likely believed Harper was a police officer based on how he introduced himself, which is obviously illegal. However, investigators found that Harper lacked the necessary documentation and wasn't certified by the Arizona Peace Officer Standards and Training Board, meaning he had no legal authority to carry out the arrest. Harper's attempts at justification didn't hold up, and he was arrested on charges of unlawful imprisonment and impersonating a peace officer. Following his guilty plea, he received a sentence of 65 days in jail, which he had already served by the time his case concluded. It makes you wonder what exactly Harper's plan was once he arrested that guy, right? Was he going to take the guy to some cardboard jail he made at his house? Down to the police station? Seriously, what was he going to do? Number 3, short-term thinking. Matthew Amesquita, a former police officer in training from Ruidoso, New Mexico, found himself on the other side of the law after falsely reporting a break-in at his apartment. It all started one morning when Amesquita, who was still in training, was sent home to shave due to department policy. But instead of just shaving, he ended up destroying his career. Amesquita claimed he stopped at a nearby store to buy a razor, but his card was declined. Surveillance footage later contradicted this, showing him leaving with a bag of purchased items, so he lied about that for whatever reason. Then he shaved at home, but when he left, he realized he had forgotten his body camera inside along with his keys. So instead of just calling a locksmith and explaining what happened, Amesquita instead kicked in the door, later calling the police to report a break-in. Officers arriving on the scene quickly noticed inconsistencies, and a closer inspection revealed that boot marks on the door matched Amesquita's own footwear. With no signs of a forced entry by anyone else and nothing missing from the apartment, things you'd expect from a break-in, it became pretty apparent what had happened. During questioning, a detective pointed out these details, pressing Amesquita to just be honest, which is clearly something he struggles with. Eventually, Mesquita admitted that he had locked himself out and resorted to kicking in the door to regain access. His false report led to an immediate arrest, and he was booked for making a false statement to the authorities. Following the incident, Mesquita was terminated from his position, and the department reported the situation to the state's Law Enforcement Certification Board. His future in law enforcement is likely over, with the probable consequences for his certification. Mesquita's dumb attempt to cover up a simple mistake basically ended his career as a police officer, which is obviously a blessing in disguise, since who knows what kind of cop he would have been. This guy clearly had no problem lying about anything and everything for no real reason, and his judgment was more in line with what you'd expect from a teenager, not someone who can legally carry a firearm. Number 2. Extracurricular Importation. J. Emmanuel Thomas, a 33-year-old former Arsenal striker, was denied bail after facing charges for attempting to bring illegal substances into the UK. Authorities at Stansted Airport discovered approximately $795,300 worth of the devil's lettuce stashed in several suitcases arriving from Bangkok. This discovery led to Emmanuel Thomas's arrest, along with 2 women who were also taken into custody. The National Crime Agency reported that around 60 kilograms of the substance were found in the luggage, leading to suspicions that Emmanuel Thomas might have been involved in orchestrating the smuggling effort. The soccer player was questioned by authorities and has since maintained his innocence, eager to clear his name in court. It's a surprising turn for Emmanuel Thomas, who spent much of his life on the soccer field. A product of Arsenal's youth academy, he made his Premier League debut at 19 and showed great promise under the legendary manager Arsene Wenger. Despite his talent, consistent first-team opportunities were scarce, pushing him to seek playing time elsewhere, including clubs in places such as Ipswich, Bristol City, and even teams in Thailand and India. Throughout his career, Emmanuel Thomas enjoyed a lavish lifestyle, often sharing glimpses of his travels on social media, from luxury resorts in Thailand to other exotic locations. But now, his off-field issues have overshadowed his once promising soccer journey. The dumb thing is, Emmanuel Thomas was still actively playing, having signed with Greencock Morton in Scotland's second tier. As of the release of this video, he's appeared in court for a plea and trial preparation hearing where he continued to deny involvement in the alleged smuggling scheme. The court deemed the case too severe to be handled by a magistrate's court, moving it to a higher court for further proceedings. Bail was denied, and Emmanuel Thomas remains in custody while awaiting trial. His contract with Greencock Morton was terminated shortly after the charges were filed. The whole ordeal ultimately begs the question, why risk it all with potential illegal activity when he could still easily earn a living on the soccer pitch? It's absurd, especially considering the long list of clubs willing to give him a shot, despite the ups and downs in his career. Instead, he wants to smuggle? And not only that, but he wants to smuggle that much? He tried to sneak through 60 kilos, which is about 132 pounds for those of us in the US. How did he even think he'd get through customs with it? All it would take is one security dog walking by and the game is over. What a stupid decision. Number 1. Still above ground. Karen Sulkild, a 42-year-old fitness trainer from Perth, Australia, faced serious consequences after faking her own passing to cash in on a life insurance payout of over $700,000. The elaborate scheme involved Sulkild claiming she had passed away in a car crash, filing a clearly altered certificate, and even using a falsified letter from the coroner's office, which was also obviously altered. She managed to collect the payout by posing as her former partner, but things quickly began to fall apart. The story is pretty crazy, but the craziest thing was how she got caught. Despite being under investigation due to all her weird blunders, Sulkild didn't exactly lay low. She kept running her fitness business and coaching a local soccer club, living life as if nothing had happened. Her carefree behavior attracted attention, and as her case gained media coverage, reporters began to follow the story closely. A 9 News reporter eventually spotted her casually shopping at a local center and took the opportunity to confront her on camera. When asked about the accusations, Salkeld angrily denied any wrongdoing, but the growing evidence was impossible to ignore. The trouble deepened when the bank flagged several suspicious transactions linked to the insurance payout, leading them to freeze her account. Desperate to access the funds, Salkeld went to the police with altered ID documents, trying to pass them off as legitimate. However, the poorly modified documents didn't fool the authorities, and her scheme began to unravel rapidly. It wasn't just the insurance scam. Investigators also soon uncovered even more fraud. Salkeld had embezzled nearly $156,000 by siphoning money from gym-related accounts into her personal accounts. According to 9 News Australia, she admitted to being inspired by a movie plot, which is as stupid as it sounds. But her actions didn't lead to a Hollywood-style happy ending. Her lawyer tried to argue that her behavior was just a momentary lapse, but the judge wasn't buying it, considering the amount of poorly considered effort she was putting into the whole scheme. It was revealed in court that Salkeld had previously received a $500,000 insurance payment in 2018 after her partner passed away, yet still ended up in significant debt. The court reviewed her actions as motivated by greed rather than any real need. As of the release of this video, Salkeld is facing sentencing with a potential maximum prison term of 7 years after pleading guilty. The court is still determining how much she must repay, as the full extent of her financial restitution to the insurance company hasn't been finalized. It seems kind of obvious that if you're going to fake your own passing, you can't be running around clearly being alive, running your business, and transferring funds out of your own account. Like, how is that not going to get you noticed? One of the many morals to this story is, don't learn how to commit fraud from a movie. And if you're going to claim you passed away, you should probably try to act like it too. Click to watch one of these next videos.